Hello, welcome to another episode of Voter Literacy. This is where we will be equipping you with information that you will need before you go and cast your vote. My name is Lona Sokanyile.
Well, Lona is not alone today. She is joined by me, Sanele Sithetho, and we can't wait to get in this session where it's so jam-packed, hey?
Yeah, like you said, and it is a jam-packed, sure. You'll hear more about it as I read this bio here. So today we are joined by director of Lona Circle. She is a political book author of a book titled Colored, which explores identity of politics in South Africa. She's a trained psychologist.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
We don't have to read all of it, correct?
She's a development practitioner and political analyst. She has 15 years experience as a development worker, a trainer, and a researcher with expertise on governance, youth development, and innovation. And she has 10 years of working experience in different African countries. In 2015, Sanele, listen to this. She was appointed to the National Planning Commission to advise the president on the implementation of the National Development Plan of South Africa. It does not end there. What? She is the trustee of Kagiso Trust and holds a Masters of Arts at the University of Wits. Help me welcome Tessa Dooms.
Oh my God! This sounds fun. That was a mouthful, eh?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I don't think anyone
We just keep
it
going and that's why is it. We get accolades, man.
So let's get on to the first question. Which small political parties could people possibly vote for, or how do they go about actually trying to find them?
Yeah, so in this election, small parties, as people call them, or I call them emerging parties, are going to be a big part of this election. So there are over 100 parties in total that are going to be part of this election. But on the national ballot, there'll be 52 parties. And then across the different provincial ballots, there'll be more parties that will be participating there as well. So some that will only participate at the provincial level. But choosing out of that is hard, right? Because 52 parties, where do you even begin? But I think that there is some way that you can start doing that. I mean, you guys have asked about so-called small parties or emerging parties. But even when it comes to bigger parties and parties that have more visibility, even they choosing between those parties is hard. So I've got like a small blueprint on how to start making your choice. So I always say to people, treat voting like it is you hiring somebody to work for you. Right? So it basically is a hiring process, because we are voting for people or for parties that will send people in to be members of parliament and members of legislature. That will work for us. They will go out there, they will create laws, they will create a government, they'll create policies, and they're going to have to do work. More importantly, each of them is earning at least a salary of R1 million, right? So that's 400 people just in terms of parliament, that your vote is going to allow them to get a salary of R1 million each. So think about that. You are employing people in this election. It's not just you're choosing a champion now, you're employing people. And so when you employ people, there are a few things that you do. The first thing though is you decide what job you want them to do. And I think us as voters, we don't think about what do we want these people to go and do for us. So I was asking my niece the other day, she was saying she doesn't know if she's going to vote. And I was asking her, what do you want? What do you want your government to do for you? And she hadn't thought about it yet. She hadn't thought, what must a government deliver for me? What must it do for me? And because she's 21 and she's just started her first job in the last few years, she said, actually what I'd like is more pay, especially for women like me. Because she was saying there's unequal treatment between men that work in her company and her. She gets paid less. I said, people in parliament can actually write laws for that. They can actually write the laws that change that. So now you know the thing that I care about, that I want the people who work for me to do, is to fix the laws around payments and how different genders get paid. And I think all of us must do that for ourselves. We must ask, what do I want somebody who goes to parliament, somebody who goes to government, somebody who becomes a president to do for me? Think about what your issues are, and then look for parties that are already talking about those issues. And that makes it a little bit easier to eliminate, right? So it's like shortlisting. And then the second part of that is then how do you know what parties are offering? All parties have, or all parties should have, a manifesto, right? And a manifesto for me in this idea of hiring somebody is like a CV. Now you would never get hired or never hire someone who isn't willing to produce a CV. That's not how the world works, right? You guys have all been there already where if you're even thinking about a job, your first choice is a CV. So my number one rule is if a party hasn't produced a manifesto, they haven't produced a CV, just eliminate them, guys.
They don't have a plan.
They don't have a plan. You can't figure out whether they align with your issues or not because they didn't even produce a CV. They're not serious about the job if they're not even willing to produce a manifesto, something that you can look at. And then you can also then use that CV to say, okay, does this match with what I would want someone to do for me when they get into parliament? And I think that's an easy way of starting to figure out which parties should I consider and which parties should I absolutely not consider. So the parties that are not talking about the things that you would want them to do, just eliminate them. Don't get confused by anything else like that. But I think the third thing in the analogy of an interview is parties that are willing to be asked questions by you and accountable to you. They're accessible to you, right? If you want to vote for a party and you can't even contact that party to ask them, hey guys, what's your plan on education? If you can't ask them now, if you can't contact the party now and their representatives now, you will never hear from them once they have the job. I can tell you that for sure. So for me, it's parties that align with your issues and knowing what your issues are, parties who actually have got a public statement about what they're going to do, but also parties that you can actually go and find them and you can relate to them and they are willing to come to you. They're willing to be heard by you. They're willing to respond to you. That's my basic criteria of where to start.
And then in terms of like their differences, how important is it to spot their differences in terms of their strategies of how they govern? Because there's this ideology that people say, you know what, I'm not going to vote because these parties are all the same. Yeah. So how do you then go about spotting the difference? But actually, this party is not like this party.
Yeah. So again, it starts with what you want, right? What you believe in, what you want, that's already going to show you differences. And I assure you, everybody's talking about education, but what they're saying about education is completely different. And you don't have to then go and look which one is better than the other, just which one is more like what I would say and less like what I would say. That I think is part of it. But the way you get there is by asking questions, right? That's how you start figuring out, is this party any different from another party? You must engage them. Now, as voters, we've gotten into a habit of waiting for the parties to come to us. Again, when it comes to hiring somebody, you don't just wait for somebody to come and knock at your door to ask for a job. You put out the call. You say, hey guys, this is what I would like you to do. Come in for an interview, let's talk. Let's do the same thing with political parties. You guys are on campus. Political parties have student wings, Call them. Say, come and represent your party in this interview. Let's talk. Let's answer the hard questions. And if I don't like your answers, if I don't like your approach, if I don't like how you treat me, how you treat people, then I'm not voting for you. It's as simple as that for me. The way parties relate to us is as important as what their plans are. Hey? There are just certain parties who I'm like, are disrespectful of voters. Just disrespectful of voters. Treat voters like they're being done a favor. I don't deal with parties that operate like that. So I think that's also what I call political culture. The way the party shows up matters, right? The other thing that you can look at is who are the party's representatives? Who are the people that the party is putting forward? In a country like ours, representation matters, right? I look at the US. The USA is having an election this year. And they've got a kind of system where they vote for presidents directly. We don't vote for our presidents, right? And they're going to have 2 people over the age of 70 to choose from this year. Give me 0 out of 10, guys. If my options are being represented by 2 people over the age of 70, never. It's 2 old white men. when I'm a young black woman.
Yes.
Those people don't represent me, right? That becomes a much harder choice. But you at least need to know who it is that you're voting for. So also look at that. Look at what the representation of parties look like. So as for me, I've got a rule. I'm looking for parties that has young people, that has lots of young people, not just on the ground in the field, but also on their list going to parliament. So the IEC's got a list of every party and the candidates that they have going to parliament. They have to present that list. It's on the website of the IEC right now. The parties also should have those lists out, so that you can actually look at the people, see their age, see their CV, see what they've done before, all of that. And you can make a decision on, do I feel like this party represents me? Are there people like me there? Are there people who are going to do the things that I want? Are the people who will like the things I like or care about the things I care about? I'm personally not willing to vote for parties that have a majority old people. I have no interest whatsoever, not because I'm a young person, but because the majority of this country is young. 40 million people are below the age of 40. I don't want a party who's willing to put 60 and 70-year-olds as the majority of people in parliament. It's just not going to happen. But that's what I care about when it comes to representation. For other people, it might be gender. For other people, it might be race. For other people, it might be religion. For other people, it might be just vibes. Whatever it is, figure out what representation you care about and also look for that.
Also, Tessa, would you think that these small parties, right, are they doing a good job in maybe addressing plan of actions with regard to unemployment, with the youth, student funding, education? Do you think they're doing like a very good job in putting in a plan of action forward as to if they were to be in position right now, what would they implement in terms of those issues?
Right. So number one, that's what manifestos are for, right? To show you and give you a sense of plans. I do think that sometimes manifestos can be really difficult to read and they can be really dense. Again, if you are not accessible to me, it becomes very difficult for me to then assess your CV. So there was a point when I was job hunting in my life where they started saying you need a one-page CV. Now, my bio at this point is one page.
Yeah, choose that. You can
I was starting to get stressed about it. Guys, I now have a one-page CV. I've worked for 20 years, but I managed to put together a one-page CV. It is possible to put your ideas and your plans in a way that people can actually access it, right? So this thing that you must read 100 pages because it's a plan for the country before you can decide on. No, we don't have the time. We're trying to survive. We're trying to survive. So I'm also encouraging and pushing parties to make their plans and their manifestos more accessible. When have you seen a party that is putting out videos and blogs and vlogs and infographics to share their plans? I think even that is a basis on which, if I can't access the information, it doesn't matter how great the plan is, right? But the second part of it is, what are you planning for and how detailed does the plan need to be? Some people give you details that you can't do anything with. You don't know whether R1 billion for this is better than R1 million for that. So again, the plan is based on what you think you would do. Start with that. That's a way to evaluate the plans. If it's something you would do, then back it, because then you can work with that party to make that plan happen. But start with yourself, start with what is the solution you would want? What is the solution you would do? And then find parties that align with them. Yes, you can be convinced by parties on different issues, and that would be great. But I don't think right now we've been having those kinds of conversations because we are not even sure what we want or what we would want to do. So I think that's my basic one with that. It's hard to figure it out, but it's important to start with, if I was running, this is what I would do, who also would do this?